Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Emanuele Bianchini, Sudha Jamthe group, and welcome to Weekly Wednesday, the Business School of AI. I'm going to be recording this session, so if anybody has any concerns, please let me know now. I've been doing business development for the last about 20 years, and I'm pivoting into artificial intelligence and see how my job is going to change with the event of artificial intelligence. And ideally, I would like to be a little bit of learning and be a little bit of ahead of the curve, so that I'll still be relevant for the next 20 years. Looking forward to get in more and more. And I'd like to thank Sudha for carrying me through, and it's been a nice journey, and it's just starting.
Do you want to tell people, when you say business development, I used to think business development was pure sales or it was partnership, and you worked in Flex and
so
more
I
of
worked
an engineer whenever I talk to you. So tell us a little bit on context.
So I come from a small company environment, but also work in large companies, always developing technologies, innovative technologies, and so it's a combination of technical expertise, engineering, but also solving customers' problems, and what are the ways to really do that. My background has been, technology and deploying technology and developing business based on technology. And I see, I spent the last 25 years in acoustics, noise, vibration, materials, and I see a lot of applications that require technologies like AI to really be able to connect the dots and be able to solve different business problems. You can solve it with hardware, but also with software and intelligence. And I think this is kind of the exciting part about artificial intelligence, that is so broad, but it could go very deep in different aspects. And it's not just a bunch of numbers. It's just kind of putting the intelligence behind, putting the business case behind, the problem solving behind. So as I transition to this particular field, a lot of the learnings in other industries can really be applicable, because at the end of the day, we're still trying to solve a problem, but in this case, maybe a little differently, a little more elegantly than in some other way.
You've always been focused on data, because I remember you took the Business of AV Data course here on Business School of AI, and you had a very interesting demo day presentation.
No, I mean, I think data is the foundation, but data is not the answer. Is what you do with the data. What type of conclusions, what type of decisions you can make. That's the important part. That's a fascinating part, because at the end of the day, that's how you're gonna help moving humanity forward. Is just making the right decision based on the right information. And so I think there are a lot of ways to manipulate, to look at it, to assess, and that's some of the things that as you go deeper and deeper in certain aspects, are become very, very important.
So what are you going to talk to us about today?
Well, today I'm going to be talking about kind of how we can solve business models, business problems using using artificial intelligence data. And this was a work that was done part of the Business School of AI with Sudha on Capstone project, and was a group effort, and was a way to for the group to get into the details of how a real problem, real business problem, could be addressed, could be solved using artificial intelligence. And so, I'll be talking about how that was done, at the same time kind of focusing more on the business aspect of things, on the reasons and the logic behind that, and not as much on the nitty gritty details of the data, the model itself. So I think I can just take it from a slightly different perspective. So if I can share my screen and kind of go through. I have a short presentation. I kind of go through kind of the process and the steps, and some of the findings. And feel free to interrupt or use the chat feature to ask questions. Want to make it as interactive as possible. It should be, feel free to ask, and feel free to make comments, and would rather be a discussion than a monologue. So
That's cool. And we have such an international mix. So I'm here from Silicon Valley. You're joining us from Boston.
yeah.
I see Damir from Czech Republic, Eugenio from Chile, and Olu from Western Canada. So I hope we can cater to a global focus in what we are sharing.
Thank you. Let me share my screen. Are you guys able to see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just take a business problem and see, can we develop a solution using AI? And once again, this is I like the fact attending those weekly Wednesday meetings. There are people coming from big organizations, small organization, but I always love this initial disclaimer. It's just like, hey, this is my representation, my interpretation of things, does not represent any other company, any organization. And so just me here talking, but a lot of the work was done in the Capstone project in the November, January timeframe with Sudha and the Business School of AI. And I also would like to thank the other team members that considerably contributed to this. Ananya was a PM. Kajal was more a data scientist. Snea was also a PM, and Roberto was kind of the business owner. So this is the data comes from Roberto, and kind of real data from a company, and so it's part of it's part of being able to work in groups, and my role was more on the business side of things, and kind of understand the business problem and what to do with it. Kind of translate.
I want to add one thing. When you say business owner, typically when you hear about Capstone project, you hear a canned data set from an existing company. In this case, I think the real learning happened because it was raw data and real business problem, like you would see in industry. So you cannot go give that data to a data scientist and say, I want to solve this business problem. I think your journey was more focused on how do you take that and be able to talk to a data scientist. Of course, you build the model using no code AI, but that was the journey. I thought the way the teams went through, how they interpreted, was amazing. Even if you give the same data set and the same business problem to another team, they would come up about it very differently.
Yeah.
So hope you can talk to that experience.
Yeah, no, and absolutely. That was a very, um, very good experience because it was really not a canned program or a canned, okay, here's a set of data that has already been done, it has been manipulated or has been kind of cleaned up and fine-tuned. This is kind of the data that was residing part of a company, marketing marketing strategy. So that was that was kind of interesting from that standpoint, and kind of really helped us really define, understand the team dynamics and understand kind of what how difficult it is in real life to really implement something like this. People think, oh, okay, just I put AI and it's gonna solve all my problems. Yeah, Houston, we do have a business problem, and but then you have the data scientists on the other end that say, yeah, I got data, I got algorithms, machine learning, CNN, RNN, regression visualization, Python, all those kind of things, and it's like, okay, so those are two totally different perspectives. On one end, you have information, you have data, or you want to solve a problem. You want to get more money, you want to get more revenue, you want to get more profit, and on the other, you got all data that you can manipulate and create rocket ships, but for what? Right? So those there needs to be kind of communication and explanation. And part of the exercise was really like, okay, we have data. Now what? What are we going to do with this data? Does this? What does the business? What is the business problem? What is the? What can we do with this information? And so that was probably the large part of the exercise. Once we have the first thing we had to do, what is the problem? Let's try to figure out what we're trying to do. Um, the kind of define, and we spent out of the 6-7 weeks, we spent probably more half of the time on the problem statement. And I appreciate Sudha kind of harping about, yeah, you got to figure out what you want to solve, what do you want to do. What is the business problem we're trying to solve? Why is this a problem? What are the pain points? Which is the person, the persona that is affected by the problem? And then once we go through all that, we need to prepare to solve the problem. And my viewpoint may be different than another person in the team, even from the business owner, and so kind of trying to translate what does um, uh, the owner of that particular data set is, and what can be done. It just was a big big exercise. Um, and I one of the during one of the discussions that we had on one of the Wednesdays, I kind of like this sentence, kind of data science solves math problems, AI solves business problems. So how can we solve a business problem? We need to identify what the problem in reality is, and so that takes some effort.
Olu has a question.
Yeah.
Does this apply to any business? As my business is launching an incubator accelerator, I would like to know.
Um, I think it does. I mean, I don't think you can say AI only is limited to XYZ industry, XYZ business. You just have to think about, um, is AI going to help you solving a problem? What is the actual problem? If the problem is can be solved, do you have data, do you have information, you need to make decisions. Are those decisions simple enough that you don't need, thousands and thousands of data points? Or is going to help you grow one particular step in your business? So I mean, I think if you're talking like in an incubator, it's a startup, I do think you may need some data to figure out what is the company value proposition. That may be one aspect. And is that, do you have a customer base? Do you have a particular product or service you want to sell? Kind of what is the market analysis? All those information, I mean, you may purchase a, a data set, or you may purchase a report and say, hey, I'm going to build a business based on the fact that there is a need for XYZ. So how far do you want to go? Is that, is that, do you need to go through an AI simulation, an AI approach? It depends. But I don't think there are any limits. It's just a matter of framing the problem and realizing is, do you need data to solve that problem? Right.
So I want to add something. Olu, are you thinking about funding companies and helping them accelerate and understand AI, or you're thinking of using AI for your own business? So when you have a lot of people applying saying, support me, and I want to join the accelerator, you want to take that data, filter and see, okay, who are the winning companies? How do we go about it? Are you going to use the data for your own business decisions? If you feel comfortable to chat, that's okay. You can just type chat also. Okay, you can continue on, Emmanuel. She'll come back. Yeah.
So what we're trying to solve. So IoT Novatech, which is a company where Roberto worked, organized this trade show in Latin American, and due to the current pandemic, they transitioned from in-person conference to an online remote conference in 2020. And so what are they going to do in 2021? That was kind of the fundamental questions. And when we started, the problem statement was very vague, because we want to increase the revenue by 10%. Well, that's the data. We realized afterwards that the data that is available did not give us any opportunity to answer that question, and so we had to readjust and our problem statement until we came to a somewhat of a watered down or higher level and problem statement, which just says, okay, we would like to find out, and we use artificial intelligence to figure out how to increase revenue by using a hybrid approach. Who should we target for an in-person, or who should we target for an online trade show? But that took a fair amount of not necessarily argument, but discussion to say, yeah, is this what you're looking for? Is this what you want? But the data you have, which was limited, is that sufficient? So you kind of have to take a step back and say, yeah, let's use what we have, the available data. And the only thing we can do is like, okay, what is the likelihood of a particular demographic that would attend the conference? So then you can do a proper marketing campaign. Do we have enough data? Do we need to introduce, do feature engineering, introduce additional data? Is there a bias in the data that we add? Can we accurately predict who will attend? And can we verify, our assumption? Do we need to modify the model? And it's one thing I definitely coming in, this exercise, I thought, yeah, we'll just we have some data, we put it through the machine, the computer, and we get some out. But the more we went through this process, there was much more to it, and it's a definitely an iterative process. Is something that you know, it's not like you push a button and all of a sudden you have all the answers. Yeah, you do push a button, and then you end up assessing and modifying and uh, moving differently. You know, so that's one thing that was definitely part of the lessons learned. So to me, I like to
So
visualize.
I have a question about the whole problem statement.
Yeah,
You captured so much in that one slide, and you just said, is it synthetic data? Will it introduce bias? You started out with the business partner saying, I want to increase revenue, and he specifically wanted revenue from users. Now
yeah,
you could get more users, you could increase the price of the conference, you could get a lookalike new set of users. You had a bunch of use cases, right? What were the steps you arrived at? Because I remember you kept going back to the beginning, many rounds of it. And that
yeah,
happens in real companies, right? We
yeah. Because
always, like data scientists know that you want to solve a real business problem and you want the right data for it.
yeah,
It's not that they just want to solve a math problem. They are doing the math part of it and building the model, but they're also looking to solve a business problem. But you
yeah,
said something about how it's loaded with assumptions. So
yeah.
what was your journey like from in Roberto said, I want to make more revenue from users, to arrived at the use case, and then you had all these questions that you were trying to get answered.
Yeah, because you know, you start and you think, oh, this with this data, I'm going to you know, I'm going to come up with a solution. But sometimes you look at it as we start diving into the data, we realize, well, there is not enough. We cannot infer from this data what you're trying to find. You know, it will be the same as you have a set of ingredients and you're trying to make a cake or a dish, but you realize you're missing parts. And then so what are you gonna do? Are you gonna, you know, go and buy the parts, you know, the rosemary and the salt and the pepper, or you're gonna make something that is without those ingredients? And I feel like at first the understanding you know, was like, oh yeah, this should give us that. But as we go into the details, it's like we cannot claim any correlation, or we cannot claim that we have um, enough information to talk about, for instance, revenue. There was no data that says specifically on the revenue stream. And now I don't know if that's because that's part of it's a little more proprietary, you know, so they did not necessarily, Roberto, they don't want to say, hey, for each ticket is $100 versus 200 versus 500, whatever it is. But given the data, you know, certain things could be done, certain things could not be done, and certain things need to added and adjusted. And you know, once again, the process, you know, to me was really, um, you know, can we look up front in a problem statement, and are we able to really answer those questions? You know, and from a logical sense, so that what we have and what we ask the data scientists is somewhat streamlined, without the need of additional interpretation. Because if you say, hey, here's the data, tell me the revenue, and she told us like, hey, I cannot do that. There is no there's no way, no model, no prediction I could do other than making things up. You know, so then we kind of go back and forth between the business owner, the owner of the data, the you know, the data scientists, to figure out that we need additional things or not. You know, so that was
Do you
think,
want Olu to ask her question instead of chatting?
Yeah, she can. Yeah, either. That's fine.
Olu, if you're back, why don't you ask your question? You were saying that, does this apply to any kind of business data? And we were asking, is it to pick companies for your accelerator, or is it for running your accelerator as a business?
Yeah. Sudha,
Yes.
can I go ahead?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay. So what I wanted to ask was how can data or AI, have an impact on the business of, launching an incubator accelerator. I was just kind of looking at the possibility of, can we run it? Can we run the process through, what I'm seeing on the screen? And, how does that pan out to the traditional, the traditional way of probably just running, either a business plan or something. I just want to know what innovative, how that can be used to solve, the problem of launching an incubator accelerator.
Yeah. So, for instance, one way to do it potentially is okay. You may have a multiplicity of companies or small entities, and maybe you have a limited budget, a limited space, and a limited support, and you say, okay, I want to open a bid. I want to open it for. I only have space for say 10 companies, and you want to pick, but there are 100 companies that are making a request.
Okay. Yeah.
How do I select the best 10 companies that I know, one, they may pay the rent, two, they'll be successful, three, that will make my incubator work, and so I think that may be one way to artificial intelligence to say, all right, let's and maybe you provide a questionnaire. To those companies, and they have to provide data. What is that data? Maybe expected revenue, maybe likelihood of success, maybe experience of the business leader, maybe number of people, maybe revenue, maybe expected current revenue, past revenue. So and then you build your database, and then with the database you say, okay, what is the most important factor that is going to guarantee success?
Right?
Is that I'm making an assumption. I may say, well, if this person, this is the seventh startup that he or she has done, and all 5 of the 7 have been very successful, yeah, I think that chances are that he or she knows what they're doing, and I think they're more likely to succeed than somebody else that has never done it. So something.
I think, sorry to cut you short, I think what you have said is very, very important, because I had a conversation with one of the, I would say, investor in residence, for NACO. Yesterday, we were having these sessions. And one of the things that, we're trying to kind of project and prep for is the rate of success of the incubator accelerator. Knowing how some incubators, they don't show maximum efficiency of the kind of companies that they incubate. So we were looking at, okay, what are the parameters? What are the things that we need to, right from the get-go, put into the process, to ensure that we have a 90% success rate, as opposed to what obtains, in the ecosystem. And I see what you're saying as, the kicker to achieving that kind of success we're talking about, based on, using AI.
Yeah.
Okay.
You may have, say, if you only have 3 companies, then you have too little data, right? Now, if you have
Yeah,
100 companies, then it's now you have it's going to be more cumbersome for you to go through the details of 100 companies and
exactly.
judgment, right? So what is the right number? It's case by case. But in generic term, you kind of you have to look at, yeah, is this going to help me? Is this going to help me make a better decision? And is it worthwhile, to really build this model, putting the data in a certain format, and getting people to run those models. And so that's also part of the business decision. It just it may make sense sometimes because you have a lot of data and you don't have time to manually go through one by one, um, versus sometimes you have a very limited data, and even if you run a model, is very not going to be very accurate because it's only based on a very limited number of data points. So understanding the scale is going to be important. um, you know does that answer your question? Okay. So
Yes,
kind
it
of
does. Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
So, for instance, that this is the process we kind of went through, and I just want to put it in visual form. So we have
Okay.
initial data. The first thing
Uh,
is, okay,
Emmanuel, I wanted to add one thing. I was observing the team come together. I was trying very hard not to talk about model, not to influence the direction your whole team was going. And that's what will happen in real life. And what with Volu, what she's saying, um, she could be wanting to use an AI to understand the risk
yeah,
and profile the risk and measure the risk for her entire portfolio.
yeah,
Or she might say, as I get a new person wanting to join the incubator, can I have a model which tells me the propensity of success of this company?
yeah,
So it's saying it's AI, but you're trying to answer different questions. And I saw your team kind of struggle through that in the beginning, and then you arrived at it, right? Because you were saying, what are we trying? So we are trying to increase revenue. That's our high level business goal. But
yeah,
how are we going to do it? How are we going to do it? And then there was a lot of business strategy that went in all your questions.
yeah,
And then you end up building different AI based on what questions you ask.
yeah, yeah. No, perfect. No, exactly. That makes sense. It's like you have to have an open mind, but start from a business case, and then kind of fine tune it until you have something you can talk to the data scientists, and then they can figure out, okay, is this a regression classification, blah blah blah, all those things, right? But yeah, it's a lot of back and forth, and there is no. I don't think there is a right or wrong answer. It's just how to position it and what will make the most sense.
I see Jose is here. He's from the other team that also did the Capstone project. So did you compare notes? Because that was a totally different kind of problem on how they were going through the process to arrive at the
And
problem.
we know the problem was Jose's problem was definitely different. I mean, uh, I think we did compare notes, but there were um, kind of two different problems that were not as closely connected. So I think in his case, he was trying to understand if there is a failure in a particular machine or part of machinery, um, and was I thought his problem was probably better defined than ours, but I'm sure he had his own struggles in trying to determine what are the key aspects that would determine that. And then, of course, as once we get to the model training, the model, the methodology. I mean, yeah, they were fairly similar. So there's definitely interaction.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if I look at the process, I like to see charts. I'm a very visual person. To me, I look, okay, there is some initial data. Do we need to add data to it? Is this sufficient? Once we have, we visualize, we do cluster and feature engineering, we train the model. Does the model output information that make business sense? Are we starting to see some solutions? And then we run the model, and then we exercise it. We just adjust variables, look at the validity assumptions, and we do repeat and iterate. So this is a continuous kind of continuous loop until we feel that yeah, we're in a good shape. So the initial data, I can go through some of the details. We have basic data, which is demographic, job title, company, home country, and then we have specific data, which included, have a user purchased a ticket before? Are they subscribing to a newsletter? Did they activate an app? So the basic data, to me, this is the data that you find in any list, any marketing list, any product list. You just the basic demographic is what the persona is, what the job is, the location, that gender. That's the basic that is going to be in every place. The specific data is more specific to the business case we're trying to solve. In this case, we're looking at attending a conference. Is attending a conference, can we get some prediction because they purchase tickets, because they are subscribing to a newsletter? Are they connected, or just go on and buy the ticket and be done with it? So if I look at any of the other business cases that in a marketing sense, I would expect to see similar, the basic data and the specific data, and how good the specific data is compared to the basic. That's where the issues are going to be. And what we find out, was the data sufficient to solve the business problem? We look at this and it's like, yeah, kind of, but there's not a lot of information. So we decide we need to add more columns to better predict who would attend, if it's in person or online. We give a higher definition on a job title, and also the country of origin. So we made some assumptions. We had some, as we make an assumption, there may be some bias that we add. It's not because we're trying to, it's just based on some of those assumptions. The weighing factors may be correct or may not be correct, but it's part of the iterative process. So we make decisions to say, okay, if you're a high job title, you have a high propensity of traveling. If you're an attendee from the same country where it's hosted, it's going to be easier for you to attend in person. But if you're far away, and during this particular times, you may not have the budget to travel. So we put those additional columns into the mix, trying to improve the prediction. Is this data sufficient now to solve the business problem? I felt that we were going in towards the right direction. Any questions so far? Then what we've done is look at the data visualization. What do we have? Like, what is our sampling? It's like about 1,100 users as part of this database from different countries, different sectors, different job titles. And look, there are way too many, several different sectors, a lot of them from Chile. The trade show is based in Chile, but covers most of the Latin American. So all those countries you see here are surrounding Chile as well as other places. And the job titles. And I think we wanted to finish this, but I think kind of looking back, we probably could have done a little better job in grouping bigger sectors and job titles. But that was part of it. There is always room for improvement. So what we did run the model. We use a no-code AI model built with Akkio, also additional runs on IBM. And this is an example of the Akkio interface. You have the data that is the one we got from from Roberto. Using the data, we can build a model. And then we can have a predictor or an app deployment in which we exercise the model. And then we can put in, once the model has been exercised, we use about that particular thing is with Akkio, it's 80% of the data is used for training the model, and then the rest one gets to do the predictions. So then we can put in the home country, the sector, the job title, and then gives us what is the likelihood they're going to attend, a trade show. So that was honestly, I do have Akkio up and running, but if we have time, we can go back. But I was relatively straightforward to use. But once again, it's more like let's look at what are we doing? Are we learning something? So we look at the model results. We have two options. One is a hybrid conference in which people would be in person and people would also be online, and then an online only conference. And what are the key drivers? We found out, for instance, job title was a big key driver in terms of the hybrid conference, because people with a specific job are more likely to travel. But then if we look at the online, the key driver is really, have they been invited to this? Do they know about this conference? And which is a large number compared to, if it is hybrid, it's still among the top, but is not the very top item. So we can see, and now this kind of does make sense, because if everything is online, your location, your title, maybe not as important, but if you know about it, it's going to be easy to sign up, go online and pay whatever fee it is, and go from there. We had good levels of accuracy, but there's not a lot of data. If we look at some of the more detailed findings as we exercise the model, is it's the persona was okay. It's not in a a lot of people from Chile would attend a hybrid conference. That makes sense because it's in Chile. Brazil a little less, and other countries less. I'm a little surprised about this 10% from Japan, but we can always dig in more. Another interesting factor on the sector, seems like the government was more likely to attend a hybrid conference. Maybe they have a specific, maybe it was a large demographic on the government in Chile. If we look at if it's a conference online only, looks like Brazil was highly in the purchasing part, and then the sector was more analytics, more data oriented, versus versus some of the government manufacturing utilities. So it was kind of interesting. You say, is this 100% correct? I mean, I think to me, it gives us trends. It gives us information. Would I sign my firstborn or my secondborn on the specific numbers? No. But it should give us enough information to say, yes, I'm going to target the government if I want to have a hybrid conference. And I want to make sure that all the people that do analytics or more in this space are invited and are okay to participate. So kind of summarizing, did the AI model solve the business problem? So to me, it was useful business exercise. We can fine tune the marketing campaign based on this data. We can focus on one country, one sector versus another. So I think I gave a check mark for this business problem. Can the model be improved? Absolutely. You know, we would like to add more historical data. Right now, we only have 2019, 2020. Let's see what the results are on 2021. But did we say, hey, can we, originally Roberto came over and said, hey, we want to increase revenue by 10%. And it's like, well, we don't have any data. We don't have any revenue details that we can do that. So this current model does not predict any revenue increase, any revenue recognition that we were originally thinking about. But it does give us information about you know, what is a more likely persona to attend this online or hybrid conference. So I think that was some of the takeaway, and I just wanted to conclude from a personal standpoint some of the lessons learned. And I think to me, those are kind of the key takeaways. You know, so that it's not, it's a business problem is sometimes not very well defined. You know, it's just like I never come into work and I have hey, here's a book of problems you need to solve, and you know, and the answer key is in the back. There is always, you know, there needs to some problem definition that needs to be done. Data may be limited, may not be good enough for a specific problems. Developing, acquiring new data sometimes is necessary to make it to make a little better prediction. And it's definitely it's definitely an iterative process. And then more on the softer side is like, yeah, there needs to have a good communication. I mean, business and data science, you know, we're all trying to achieve a common goal, but you know, we need to express and communicate. And really, at the end of the day, if you want to solve a business problem using AI, you still need to have your eyes open and think, does this make sense? I've done in the past all different types of modeling for acoustics, for structures, for dynamics, and so on and so forth. And I think there is a conservation of garbage principle. If you put in the model garbage, you're going to get out garbage. So keep that in mind. So think about the data you have, think about what the model is going to predict, and does it make sense? And is it reasonable? If it doesn't make sense, challenge it, making sure that is you know, is the correct thing you're trying to solve, and then yeah, use keep on exercising and see until you find some valuable information that makes sense. And I think this concludes my my experience, my presentation here, but open for questions.
Do you have an example of what data you thought was actually garbage in and you had to get rid of it?
I mean, we didn't use much. But we had a couple of fields that were kind of, there was a lot of blanks. And it's, to me, it's like if you have more than 50% blank, it's like, well, why bother? There was a couple of fields that were that we didn't have that part of information. We looked at some other stuff was, you know, I don't think was very effective. I mean, we didn't look through too much into the companies themselves. We could have done that, but I think it's just really the validity of some of the data. You know, some was not complete. So you could you know, you could look at because we ran one simulation, and the best case scenario was just unknown. And I was like, well, if that field is unknown, why we're bothering with it? And that was like more than 50%. So, but that's you know, that's one example. But also in the way I'm saying, it's not it just kind of look at you know, is the data the appropriate data? Does it have an impact? You know, if it does or if it doesn't, you need to kind of be conscious of that. Cool. I mean, it was a great experience. You know, just and I mean, there is another. I'm planning on using something quite similar for different reasons, but you know, for my own business, and it's like I'm definitely want to follow a similar process, and just really go through kind of the business case. And you may have data that has a certain piece of information, but then you're trying to get some answers, and so it's always kind of looking for, can you add additional information? Thank you very much. Thank you, Sudha, for giving me the opportunity to to chat about this and talk about it.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel. And the Capstone lab, what you guys did is what is now expanded out as this new no-code AI course. We are looking for real business problem, and we want to have our students solve the real problem again in a team like you, right? Multidisciplinary team. And so thank you so much.